Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video. In this video I wanted to talk about DC fast charging and what its purpose actually is. So right now I notice basically everybody, and this includes Tesla as well, talking about how DC fast charging is an absolutely essential technology for EV adoption. And I disagree. The core purpose of DC fast charging is to compensate for inadequacies in electric vehicle technology, purely and simply. As it is, most EV owners charge at home about 90 to 95% of the time. So really the only time DC fast charging even comes into play is in long distance trips or driving away from home. The most important factor for electric vehicles really is their range. And DC fast chargers are essentially just stationary range extenders. Now, you look at vehicles like the Volt, where it's an electric vehicle with an internal combustion range extender. Well, that range extender that's built into the Volt is serving the exact same purpose for long trips as a DC fast charger is serving my Bolt EV. Now, there's an argument that the DC fast charger is better than the range extender, at least from an environmental standpoint, because while a Volt, oftentimes you'll have drivers doing 90 to 95% of their driving on electricity, while they're still 5% of the time burning gasoline. Whereas with a DC fast charger, you can do 100% of your driving without burning gasoline. You don't need to lug an internal combustion engine around, something that's inherently unreliable, relying on a fuel source that you can't produce yourself. So there's all sorts of economic, environmental, particulate matter, pollutants that go into the air, greenhouse gases. There are a number of reasons to prefer DC fast charging over an internal combustion engine range extender. But it doesn't change the fundamental fact that both are in place to compensate for inadequacies in electric vehicle technology. Now, the good thing is we know that technology is changing. Solid state batteries are likely to result in at least a 2 to 3 times increase in energy density, which a Bolt EV with 750 miles of electric range, well, for me, I've never gone on a trip where that wouldn't be sufficient for the trip without ever having to rely on DC fast charging. Of course, that does mean that there needs to be plentiful destination charging, and those could be DC chargers as well, but most often they only need to be level 2. But I really think that we need to use caution with the amount of money and time that we invest in public DC fast charging infrastructure, because I think we need to recognize that all it is a bridge to get us to the point where electric vehicle technology and capabilities just completely eclipse that of internal combustion engine vehicles, even in terms of range and energy density of fuel, because that time is coming and it's really not that far away. So when the average electric vehicle has 5 to 600 miles of range per battery charge, the only times you're really going to need DC fast charging is as an emergency service, essentially. And you're going to have a number of technologies to allow for that, but really it's going to be very, very occasional long distance trips where you're going to need to use DC fast charging. It's going to be cases where your charger at home went out, you miscalculated the range, the weather was worse than you expected it to be. Those cases are going to account for, in my estimation, at most maybe 1% of the charging needs and not even of all drivers. So in the United States, if you look at that, as we have 150 to 170,000 gas stations around the country. Well, if you reduce that need by 99%, just rounding up, maybe you have 2,000 DC fueling points throughout the country. And that might be the right number. That would give you adequate distribution, at most 10 to 12 to maybe 20 DC chargers at that particular site. 2,000 of those sites around the country would support a 100% transition to personal transportation on electric vehicles if the average electric vehicle range were 500 to 600 miles per charge. And that's why I say we should use caution, because essentially what it means is, especially if you count Tesla as well with their supercharger network, the public charging infrastructure and Tesla's superchargers already meet our eventual need for public fast charging. And more than likely, like I said, you're going to look at it as an emergency service. There might be a charger at a rest area. It would be in combination with things like an air compressor to fill up your tires, or, water to, fill up your radiator. It would fall under those lines. And more than likely, a lot of this support would even come in the form of tow trucks or support vehicles that have DC chargers built onto them. So if you do happen to run out of energy on a route because something went wrong, well, you have a rescue vehicle that adds a couple hundred miles of range in a few minutes, and then you're back on your way again. But that's really where I see the future of electric vehicles being, in the not too distant future either. So that's why I say I think we do need to use caution when building out public charging infrastructure, knowing that the end game is likely that the primary need for charging away from home is going to be destination chargers of whatever shape they happen to take. But this idea of putting DC fast chargers and travel centers along the freeway, I think it wouldn't be a lasting technology. It just wouldn't last long enough for it to actually matter, because the truth is, it is inconvenient to have to fill at a location that you didn't plan to fill at along a trip. That's why gasoline-powered vehicles, why those drivers avoid stops as much as they possibly can. At least they try to avoid fueling stops as much as they possibly can, because really nobody wants to stop at a gas station. I'd love to hear what you think about this. That's where I see this technology going into the future, and there are other technologies that would support a transition away from needing any sort of real public fast charging infrastructure at all. Let me know what you think about it. If you think I'm off base, if you think that the miles are wrong, if you think that that's not the direction EVs are going in. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and thank you for watching.